I don't know if you've read it, but his nickname was Mallard. And he looked like a little duck when he was.
In the wild world of entertainment, stars often burn bright and fast, ending up as answers to trivia questions. But a rare few manage to stick around. They don't just survive, they reinvent themselves, trading the brilliant heat of fame for a warm, enduring glow. Marie Osmond is one of those rare stars. For over 6 decades, she's been a constant presence, a familiar face through massive shifts in pop culture. We know the fresh-faced teenager with that crystal-clear country voice, the charming co-host of a beloved variety show, and the powerhouse performer who owned the Las Vegas stage for 11 years. But behind that famous smile and the catalog of hits, there's a much more complex story. It's a story of incredible pressure, unimaginable tragedy, and a faith that never buckled. It's the story of a woman who built an empire, lost it, and then built it all over again. From sold-out arenas and the blinding flashbulbs of paparazzi to quiet days as a grandmother of 8, Marie Osmond's life at 65 is a world away from her time as a teen sensation. Today, her reality isn't defined by TV ratings or chart positions, but by bike rides with her grandkids and the simple joy of a second chance at a love she first knew 40 years ago. This is the story of how she swapped the exhausting demands of superstardom for a life filled with family, faith, and a love story that proves some things are just meant to be. It's what happens when the applause finally fades, and you're left with the person you've become. And for Marie Osmond, that person is more interesting than any character she's ever played. To get who Marie is today, you have to go back to Ogden, Utah. On October 13, 1959, Olive Marie Osmond was born, the 8th of 9 kids and, importantly, the only girl. Her childhood was shaped by 2 massive forces: her family's devout Mormon faith and the skyrocketing fame of her older brothers. Before she could even talk, her brothers Alan, Wayne, Merrill, and Jay were already America's sweethearts on The Andy Williams Show. It wasn't long before the whole family packed up for California, landing right in the heart of the entertainment machine. While her brothers became household names, Marie's childhood was anything but normal. Her 2 oldest brothers, Verl and Tom, were born with hearing loss, a fact that baked a deep sense of compassion into the family's DNA. She was just 3 years old when she made her own debut on Andy Williams' stage, introduced with a laugh, as the youngest Osmond brother. From that moment on, her path was pretty much set. While other kids were going to school dances, Marie was learning stage cues and tour schedules. She later said that success robbed her of a normal, happy childhood, describing her youth as being lived out of a suitcase, always on the move to the next show. The pressure was constant, not just to perform, but to be perfect. The Osmonds weren't just a band. They were a brand built on wholesome, family-friendly values that stood in stark contrast to the rock and roll rebellion of the time. As the only girl, Marie carried a special weight. She was expected to be the brand's ideal woman, sweet, virtuous, and always smiling. That's a heavy crown for a little girl to wear, one that forced her to grow up way too fast. Her parents warned her that show business wouldn't be easy, which turned out to be the understatement of a lifetime. In those early years, the foundation was laid for a life of discipline, hard work, and a sense of responsibility that would define her forever, for better and for worse. While her brothers were conquering pop music, the family's producers had a different idea for Marie. They saw her as a solo artist, a country starlet who could tap into a whole different market. Ever the professional, Marie stepped right into the role. She started recording at just 12 years old, and in 1973, as she was turning 14, the world was formally introduced to her incredible talent. Her debut single, a cover of Anita Bryant's Paper Roses, was a phenomenon. The song shot to #1 on the Billboard country chart, making her the youngest female artist to ever top that chart with a debut single and even earning her a Grammy nomination. Almost overnight, Marie Osmond wasn't just Donnie's little sister. She was an international superstar. Her first album, also called Paper Roses, hit the top of the country album charts and made a huge dent on the all-genre Billboard 200 looking. Back, the lyrics to Paper Roses feel almost eerily prophetic. The song is about a fake love, built on fragile, artificial promises. "He's giving you a paper rose," she sang, with a voice that sounded both innocent and wise. For a young girl whose entire life was being carefully produced and packaged for the public, the song hit a little too close to home. The spotlight she was under was, in many ways, just as fragile and artificial as that paper rose. The success was dizzying, but it came with a price. While other kids her age were struggling with algebra, Marie was dealing with record executives and global press tours. Industry professionals, with casual cruelty, told her she needed to lose weight, planting seeds of body dysmorphia that would haunt her for years. She credits her survival during this time to two things: her parents and her deep faith in God. This faith wasn't just something she inherited, it was a conscious choice, a personal anchor in the chaos. Paper Roses may have launched her career, but it also defined the struggle of her young life, trying to find something real in a world that so often felt like a beautiful but breakable fabrication. Donnie was a star. Marie was a star, but a TV executive had an even bigger idea. In 1976, the brother-sister duo, whose chemistry on stage was undeniable, were given their own primetime variety show. Donnie and Marie hit the air on ABC and was an immediate, massive success. At just 16 and 18, they became the youngest hosts in TV history to headline their own variety hour. The show was pure Osmond, a fun mix of songs, dances, and squeaky-clean comedy sketches. Marie, with her quick wit, often played the slightly more mature big sister to Donnie's teen idol energy. Their theme song said it all. "I'm a little bit country, and I'm a little bit rock and roll." It became appointment television for millions of families across America, cementing Marie's status as a multi-talented entertainer and a true TV personality. But behind the scenes, it was anything but effortless fun. The schedule was brutal, relentless grind of rehearsals, tapings, and promotions. Both Donnie and Marie have talked about the crushing pressure and the complete loss of a normal teenage life. Every part of their lives was managed and scrutinized. The very wholesome image that made them famous became a kind of prison. They were trapped, unable to grow up or change without threatening the entire empire. The strain of keeping up that perfect image, combined with the insane workload, started to show. The show that had launched them into the stratosphere was also burning them out. In 1979, after 4 seasons, the hurricane finally passed. The show was canceled. And for the first time in years, the constant roar died down, leaving a young woman standing in the sudden, unnerving silence, forced to figure out who she was without the scripts and costumes. The end of the Donnie and Marie show kicked off a period of huge change. In the early 80s, the entire Osmond family was in financial trouble after their fortune was mismanaged. With her TV career on hold, Marie focused on her personal life. In 1982, at age 22, she married Stephen Lyle Craig, a basketball player she'd met as a teenager at Brigham Young University. To the public who watched her grow up, it looked like a fairy tale. The ultimate girl next door was finding love and a shot at a normal life. They had a son, Stephen Jr., the next year. But the pressures of Marie's world didn't just disappear. She's talked about how young they both were, trying to build a life together while the whole world was still watching. The fairy tale didn't last. In 1985, after just 3 years, they divorced, and Marie was a single mom with a very uncertain future. She remembers that time as being terrifying. "All of a sudden, I'm a single mom and I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent, let alone feed my kid," she recalled. That fear lit a fire under her. With the fierce determination that would become her trademark, she got back to work. But this wasn't some glamorous comeback. It was a hustle. She bought costumes from stores like the Limited Express and sewed sequins on them by hand, doing whatever it took to rebuild her career from scratch. And it worked. She went back to her country roots and, in 1985, the same year her marriage ended, she released a duet with Dan Seals called Meet Me in Montana. It went straight to #1. She followed that with another solo #1 hit, There's No Stopping Your Heart. Within 2 years, Marie Osmond was back on top. It was during this career comeback that she met and married music producer Brian Blossel in 1986. She'd later admit that she might have rushed into it, still healing from her divorce. But at the time, it felt like a fresh start. She and Blossel would go on to build a huge family, a life that would bring her incredible joy and eventually some of her deepest heartaches. The late 80s and 90s were a new chapter for Marie, one defined more by family than by fame. Over the course of her marriage to Brian Blossel, their family grew and grew. In addition to her son Stephen, she and Blossel had 2 biological children and adopted 5 more, creating a chaotic, loving home with 8 kids. Motherhood was now her main job, and she threw her whole heart into it. But this time of family growth was also filled with private pain. After her son Matthew was born in 1999, Marie fell into a severe postpartum depression, in a move. At the same time, the industry's obsession with her weight continued to follow her. She battled her body image for years, and at one point was 50 pounds overweight. It wasn't just about looks, it was about her health. Simple things, like climbing, stairs, left her out of breath. "You can't breathe and run all over the stage with that weight," she explained. She knew she had to make a change to keep up with both her career and her kids. Professionally, she kept branching out. She launched a wildly successful line of collector dolls, starred in TV movies, and even did a stint on Broadway. In 1998, she and Donnie re-teamed for a daytime talk show that ran for 2 seasons. She was always working, always reinventing, but the real core of her life was her family. This period was a mix of public success and private struggles, the joy of raising 8 kids woven together with depression and self-doubt. It was a time that forced her to confront her demons and build a deeper, more authentic strength than she'd ever known. No matter what Marie Osmond had faced in her life, child stardom, public scrutiny, divorce, depression, nothing could have prepared her for the tragedy of 2010. That February, her beloved son, Michael, died by suicide at age 18. The loss was shattering, a grief so profound it would have destroyed most people. Marie vanished from the public eye, consumed by a pain no parent should ever have to know. In that darkness, the 2 things that had always held her up, her faith and her family, became her lifeline. Her Mormon faith, especially the belief in eternal families, offered a glimmer of hope in the abyss. "Little did I know I would be relying on my faith, especially as much as I did this past week," she said shortly after his funeral. It wasn't just a comfort. It was an active part of her survival. The Osmond family motto has always been, essentially, the show must go on. Just weeks after laying her son to rest, in an incredible display of strength, Marie returned to the Las Vegas stage where she and Donnie had their show. She stood before a packed house, her voice thick with emotion, and said, "The way Osmonds survive is we keep singing." It wasn't about pretending the pain wasn't there. It was about refusing to let it swallow her whole. It was about finding a way to move forward, one day at a time. This period also saw the end of her 20-year marriage to Brian Blossel, which had officially concluded in 2007. The years following her divorce and the loss of her son were a time of deep reflection. The grief, she has said, is a permanent part of her, but it didn't extinguish her spirit. Instead, it forged a new kind of resilience and paved the way for a beautiful new chapter she never saw coming, while navigating the worst. Personal storms of her life, Marie was also in the middle of a stunning professional comeback. In 2008, she and Donnie reunited for what was supposed to be a 6-week gig at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. That 6-week run turned into an 11-year residency, becoming one of the most successful shows in the history of the Las Vegas Strip. The Donnie and Marie show was pure high-energy entertainment. It mixed their classic hits with new material, amazing choreography, and the famous sibling banter that fans had loved for decades. It was a smash, voted best show in Vegas multiple times. For Marie, performing every night gave her a sense of purpose and structure during a time of personal chaos. The stage became her sanctuary. But after more than 1,700 performances, they decided it was time to close the curtain. In November 2019, Donnie and Marie took their final bow at the Flamingo, ending an incredible chapter in their lives and in Vegas history. They were honored with the key to the Las Vegas Strip, cementing their legacy as city icons. The end of the residency was another major turning point. After a decade of a grueling nightly schedule, Marie was free again. She briefly joined the daytime show, The Talk, but left after a year to focus on other projects, and more importantly, her family. The Vegas era was over. It had not only revived her career, but had carried her through her darkest days. Now, with the stage lights dimmed, she was ready to turn her full attention to the life she was building away from the spotlight, a life that was about to come full circle in the most beautiful way. After her divorce and the loss of her son, Marie Osmond was done with marriage. "I never wanted to be married again," she said. "I was like, I'm fine, I'm good." She was focused on her kids, her career, and her own healing. But life, as it often does, had other plans. Because she and her first husband, Stephen Craig, shared a son, they'd stayed in touch over the years, and it was their son, Stephen Jr., who quietly set the stage for a love story almost 30 years in the making. As Marie reconnected with Stephen Craig, not as a superstar or a grieving ex-wife, but just as a friend and co-parent, something incredible happened. That spark they had as 22-year-olds, the one that had been smothered by fame and youth, was still there. Only this time it was deeper, strengthened by life experience, loss, and a shared understanding of what really matters. They started dating again, and a couple of years later they made a huge decision. Marie explained that with their son getting married, it just felt right. "We realized we can't go to our son's wedding and not be married. So, on May 4th, 2011, in a private ceremony at the Las Vegas Mormon Temple, Marie Osmond remarried the first man she ever loved. The date was picked for a reason. It was the birthday of both her late mother and her late son, Michael, a way to have them there in spirit. And in a gesture that was both amazing and deeply romantic, Marie walked down the aisle in the exact same wedding dress she had worn when she first married Stephen back in 1982. It was a perfect symbol of their story coming full circle. Their remarriage isn't just a Hollywood ending. It's a story about forgiveness, growth, and the power of a love that lasts. "I am so happy and look forward to sharing my life with Stephen," she said at the time. Today she calls him the sweetest man I know. After decades in the public storm, Marie had finally found her safe harbor. She found her way back to the love of her life, proving that sometimes the greatest treasures are the ones you thought you'd lost forever. Today, at 65, Marie Osmond's life is all about family, faith, and a new kind of creative freedom. She's not chasing fame anymore, but her artistic spirit is burning as bright as ever. In 2021, she released a new album that surprised a lot of people. Unexpected. It's a collection of classical, opera, and Broadway songs, genres she's loved since she was a little girl. It was a passion project that showed off the incredible power and range of her voice, and it was a huge hit, debuting at #1 on Billboard's classical crossover chart. Since then, she's been touring the country, performing with symphony orchestras and thrilling audiences with this whole new side of her talent. But the real heart of her life is her family. With her 8 children now grown, she and Stephen are empty nesters, and she's loving it. "I want to just date my husband. I just want to have fun," she has said. This new chapter has also brought her what might be her favorite role yet: grandmother. She is a doting gam to 8 grandchildren and talks about it with pure joy. "Oh my gosh, grandchildren are like having your kids on steroids," she gushed. "It's just like, so cool I can't tell you." She sees a big difference between the 2 jobs. "As a parent, you have to guide them. You're not their friend," she explained. "When you're the grandma, who cares? I can do anything I want." She's committed to being the fun grandma, the one who stays in shape to go on long bike rides and shut down theme parks with them. It's incredibly important to her that her grandkids know her not as a celebrity, but as the real, loving grandmother who is always there for them. And that commitment to family is absolute. She's a fierce supporter of all her children, including her daughter Jessica, who is gay, stressing that unconditional love is her only rule. Her life today is a different kind of symphony, not of hit records and sold-out arenas, but of laughter, love, and the quiet fulfillment of being surrounded by the family she built. It's a life that is, in her own words, truly unexpected and more beautiful than she ever could have imagined. As Marie has moved into this phase of her life, her focus has shifted to her legacy. Not the legacy of gold records, but of the impact she can have on the world. Her commitment to service has always been there, but now it's front and center. Her biggest philanthropic passion is the Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, which she co-founded back in 1983. What started with a single telethon has grown into a massive organization that supports 170 hospitals across North America, raising billions of dollars for kids who need it most. She remains deeply involved, visiting hospitals and using her platform to support their mission. This philosophy of empowerment extends to her own family in a way that might surprise you. Marie has been very clear that she's not leaving her fortune to her children. It's not a lack of love. It's a desire for them to find their own purpose and work ethic. She believes a big inheritance can be a curse that robs people of the drive to make their own way. And through it all, her faith remains her foundation. It's a faith that's been tested by tragedy and strengthened by time. She talks about it openly, not as a lecture, but as the source of her resilience and positive outlook. She believes in working on herself, choosing to see the good in life, and focusing on what truly matters. The Marie Osmond of today is a woman who has found a deep and lasting peace. She's seen the highest highs and the